Welcome to a special interview series commemorating 40 years of Lambda Scholarship Foundation Canada. In honor of this milestone, we're diving into the rich and complex history of an organization that has played a pivotal role in supporting the evolving needs of 2S LGBTQIA+ communities in Canada. Through candid conversations with some of the key individuals who helped shape the organization, this project aims to preserve and present the stories that define Lambda's legacy. These interviews offer space for reflection, celebration, and insight, offering a vivid portrait of the Foundation's evolution and its ongoing commitment to advancing equity in academic research, financial support, and education. For this interview, I sat down with Tuan Vu. Tuan has served as a board member of the Lambda Scholarship Foundation Canada for more than 20 years, most of them as treasurer. With a bachelor's degree in computer science and a master's in mathematics from the University of New Brunswick, as well as an MBA from McGill University, he is an associate actuary and a consultant in information system implementation. Over the course of his career, he has worked in many different industries, including banking, insurance, hydroelectric, utility, manufacturing, and high tech, as well as in the public sector. Hello, Tuan. Thanks so much for speaking with us today. Unlike most of the people that we're speaking to about this project, I know that you live in Montreal. Can you tell us a little bit about your early days with Lambda?
I think for me, the early day of Lambda actually start completely on an event that is completely outside of the Lambda per se. I swim a lot, and at that time, I swim with a contre-courant. Actually, I still swim with a contre-courant. And around that time, though, there's a lot of swim meet, gay swim meets around not only Canada, but in the US at the master level. And when we go to those swim meets, of course, we meet a lot of people. And one of those swim meets actually was held in Ottawa. And Gary and Hugues host me the first year. And that's how with Gary and Hugues, there's a fairly easy rapport that actually established right from the start. They are both very welcoming. They are both well-read. And I love talking about books because more than anything else, actually, besides swimming, another thing that I love to do is really reading. So compare notes with them, what they like, what they don't like, get some pointers. That's actually how we met and how I started with Lambda.
Why do you think he asked you to become involved, and what inspired you to get involved?
He asked me to become involved, I think, is because while we're discussing about literature, we also, of course, discuss about the world at large. I think, sometimes it's when you talk to someone and they have a bit of the same outlook, I think it's actually make it fun to work with that person. At least from my perspective, that how it's work. So, and at first I just come to Lambda, and the first 2-3 years I was the treasurer at that time. But as times goes on, and with my background, it seemed like just a fit that I take over the financials and the treasury functions.
What year was this around, would you say? Do you remember that you first got involved?
Probably around mid-1990s, around there. It's have to be after I graduate from my MBA. And I would say around 98, 99, somewhere there. Yeah.
Okay. You hold 3 university degrees, which means you've spent a significant time in academic environments. During that time, did you encounter any challenges or barriers to being a member of the LGBTQ plus community in an academic setting?
I think for all intent and purpose, I would not be the right person to answer that, because until I complete my MBA, I was not out. So while I do know, there are movements and activities with LGBT, I actually did not participate it. It's really only afterward. And I would say that a contre-courant really helped me with that, because I was in a group of peers, of athlete peers, and it's really opened my eyes to the possibilities of what we as a collective can do. And before that, also because of my background, I was very low key. So yeah, from a perspective of academia, I actually do not really know much about activities there.
You worked as a volunteer for over 20 years at Lambda, 15 of them as treasurer. What were your early days with the foundation like? Maybe some of your first memories of working with Lambda.
I think for me, the Lambda is always feel like a social group, in the sense that they're a collective of like-minded people that have some connections because, even late, this is not necessarily LGBTQ plus, is not necessarily as accepting as it is today. Being able to have a group of peers to discuss the challenge that we encounter, whether at work or, with our peers, and especially when those people don't necessarily, live right beside you, make it actually easier sometimes to talk about issues like that. I do remember Lambda and our meetings. It is very ad hoc. Our meetings, like it happens once every quarter at the beginning. We don't really meet as regularly as we do now. And our agenda is also a lot more flexible. So it's become, even though we still stay on as a volunteer board, I certainly see a kind of professionalism that's kind of creep up years after years.
Can you describe a bit like your role and responsibilities as treasurer?
So the first things that I notice is that to answer some simple finance questions, actually there is no one that actually able to provide a really quick answer. Let me just go back one step. As you know, Lambda Foundations, our role and purpose is actually to endow scholarships, especially at the beginnings. Like we have different university and we collect money so that we get to a critical size of money, and then we actually give that money to a university that accept that money in order for them to distribute it to the students. Once that money leaves Lambda, they are no longer ours. We still collect the money years after years. And, so let's say that we want to establish a scholarship, I don't know, at Université de Montréal. So if we want to do that, then let's say that we need, as an example, a minimum of 25,000. So we collect the 25,000, but as times go on, depending on how well that university invests the seed money, we can see that that money might not be sufficient to keep the scholarship going. So we keep on raising money for that scholarship, and every year, then we would top it up if need be. And one of the first questions, as a board member was, okay, so this year, where is that fund? Let's say we say Université de Montréal. Do we need to top it up? How much we comfortably can top it up? And to obtain that answer, it wasn't always easy. And as I get more involved into that aspect, I see this way for me to streamline the process and make it easier, in fact, to be able to answer the board at any time if those kind of questions come.
So, you're kind of the perfect person, I guess, for the role. You've got a background in actuarial science and systems implementation. Like, what skills and best practices, you're talking about streamlining the process, what skills and best practices do you bring to Lambda's financial management?
So as the treasurer, at the end of the day, I'm really responsible to present the financial statements of Lambda of the previous fiscal year, and how we do it in such a way that it is transparent is really my aims right from the start. At any time, and initially, actually, I only have to report to the board 4 times a year. I have to let them know at every quarter how we are doing, if there's any danger, at the end, because maybe our operation cost is too much, and whether there's certain fund that really we have not raised enough money, for example. I think so as an actuary, the first things also that I'm thinking of when I'm looking at anything is risk and how to manage that risk, So, and on my professional side, I'm a system implementations of SAP, and my specialization is finance. So I do know the process that's actually linked to the different streams of work. And I try to make sure that we have as robust as a process as possible, and always keeping in mind also that Lambda as a nonprofit organization, uh, and be able to send out a tax receipt, which is a privilege that can be easily canceled by the CRA if we don't do our bookkeeping properly. So always have that in mind that, like if the CRA tomorrow knock at our door and say, can we take a look at what's behind this number? We have to be able to provide the supporting documents to make sure that, to show the CRA that our bookkeeping is top notch.
So when you first got involved, this was as you mentioned, like the late 90s. This is the time, I think, when the foundation began to shift its focus from being more of a social and networking group to one focused on rewarding excellence. Were you there and involved at that time when that shift was happening?
I was, and I think actually it start with Bart Freeman leading actually to Bart Freeman's leading the charge for that, because at the end of the day, what we really want to answer is that who can we help and how can we help them better? So that is for the responsibility of the foundation, the Lambda Foundation. And that is against the background of the society that's actually also rapidly changing. There are things that in the mid-90s or the end of the 90s that is really very different if I look at the landscape today. From a risk standpoint, I say that the way that the board answer that questions is really to move more and more toward the people that we think are in need, and not necessarily solely at the university level. At the beginning, we really, really concentrate on the university. And you still can see that if you look at our website and look at all the scholarship that we provide, it's really anchored around the university. But I think that we move a bit away from that because we just feel like we are able to help more people that way. And at the same time, unfortunately, I feel that we as a board take on more challenge and more risk. Remember that at the beginnings with the endowment, we have a pot of money and we provide it to the university, and the university decide among their scholars who is the right person to accept this scholarship or this bursary, so the risk is actually not at the Lambda side. We don't decide, we don't choose the scholar. The university is entirely managed by the university. And that model have changed a little bit throughout the years, and we are a bit more implicated in the selection, for example. And just that small change bring additional risk for our board.
Can you speak maybe a little bit more to that? Like you mentioned beyond the university. So I guess you're speaking about colleges, maybe high schools.
We have, for the longest time, actually, we have a scholarship for the South Spring High School. And I know that we actually also working to create a scholarship maybe for refugees, Canadian refugees. And in those kind of scholarships, we always trying to minimize, the impact to the board of director of Lambda Foundation. It is in the risk management is certainly important. We keep that in mind, but we just feel that that's is the right way for the foundations to go forward.
So Tuan, a lot of this has to do with partnerships, right? I know that Lambda first began to expand and grow in the early 2000s, right? At first it was with Carleton, the University of Ottawa, then the University of Manitoba, University of New Brunswick, Université de Montréal, University of Guelph. You've mentioned also new partnerships or collaborations that are developed around new types of prizes, awards. How does Lambda approach collaboration, I guess, either with external bodies in which, you want to be able to work with to create these awards? How do these collaborations come about?
So my answer, I must preface the answer first, is that I answer as a treasurer. So I don't have personal contact with the external bodies, but I do know that to find the right recipient, the right organizations to partner with, is a very tough job, because whatever the criteria of selections, the recipients of the award, that organizations have to be in agreement with us, Um, and sometimes that it's and sometimes it's difficult because what a seed donor, a major seed donor has in mind might not be possible because maybe because it's very difficult to implement, or maybe because it contravenes, for example, our charter of right. So to find the right organizations and for them to agree to be partner with us is it's a fairly important endeavor. I, of course, only come at the end of that process because I come in to make sure that the foundations have enough money to support whatever new award that we have, and I get update throughout the process, but I usually not involved in that process.
Did you get to meet many scholarship recipients over the years? And did you ever get a sense of what they meant to the people who received them?
I receive through the board different thank you letters. So I do understand how the award impact their life. I personally have not met them. And actually, from a risk standpoint, as a board of director, it might not be, I don't believe it's actually might be the best idea that we actually get to know the recipients too well in any case.
Do you have an opinion, though, in terms of like what roles scholarships and academic support play, in particular for LGBTQ students and their own maybe personal liberation?
So I think actually to be able to have uh, LGBTQ scholarship is extremely important. I truly believe that the opening of the society uh, is because not only because of the courage of a lot of the people before us that helped to open up the society, but part of that is also through the scholarship that has been done. Um, in like a lot of university have LGBTQ plus studies. Those scholars certainly help to contribute to opening up of the society. So the result is certainly very important. And I can see that and I can feel that and I can experience the positive outcome of that. From a day to day, of course, is a bit more mute. But nevertheless, the goal, of course, is that one day we don't need this kind of scholarship anymore because the society would be so well mixed and like we don't have to worry about that. But as you know, the pendulum is swinging one way and then it's swinging the other way, and what I'm always trying to be vigilant is that what we accomplished so far, it was just amazing. I can never believe this could happen within my lifetime. We want to make sure that kind of openness still open, still there for the next generation.
Over the years, there have been 170 award recipients, and Lambda has given out collectively, I think it's more than $237,000. I'm curious, like, how does Lambda raise money for the scholarships?
Up until now, we do it in a fairly what I call artisanal way, and in the sense is that like different board members through their knowledge and through their contact are able to raise a certain amount of money. There's a decisions at the beginning say, okay, somebody actually usually would spearhead and say, like, so I want to raise to create an endowment for X university. So from there, we have to approach university to make sure that it is okay, the amount and how much that university expect in order to have an endowment at that university. And then when that first part is agreed upon, then we would go and start raise the money. In the old times, we have different activities to do that, among others, the Wild About Sappho. Um, and it would take a couple of years, usually, for us to have enough money to endow at a university. And then when we have that pot of money, we just transfer.
Has it been easy or difficult over the years to get people to donate? I'm sure there are, times when maybe Canada's finances are doing so well.
Mhm.
How easy or how difficult has it been?
So it's an up and down. I feel it is an up and down. years is easier than others, but a tendency is actually, I feel it is a bit harder to fundraise. Part of it, I think, because the Lambda foundations might not have the visibility that we wish to have. And partly, I think, maybe because also society at large, ironically being so LGBTQ plus, are so well integrated in a Canadian landscape that the sense of urgency that my generations have might not be felt for the younger generation. Also, so it's a confluence, I think, of things. How is it harder? Now, that saying, it might be actually easier in another sense, is that the seed donor that can contribute big portions of an endowment, it might be easier because a lot of the people, my generations, get to a point where we can actually give more. We're just in a position to give more. So if we're able to reach the right person, sometimes it might be easier. So it is a difficult question to answer because I have seen both. But I have, as a group, I think it's actually harder to reach people.
You mentioned Wild About Sappho as a fundraising component that Lambda had done for the years.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned also that you love to read. Wild About Sappho was a literary event that raised funds for Lambda. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Like, what are some of your memories of these events?
I must say that that is one of my favorite events of the Lambda Foundations, especially at the times of Gary and Hugues. So as you say, it's a literary event, and the format is actually fairly simple. Once a year, we usually group in Ottawa, and there is a roster of writers and poets, and they showcase their work for us. A lot of them actually read for us their latest work, and it's a very social event. First of all, you are able to meet, like all the writer that you books you actually hold usually in your hand. So that to me it is like a fantastic feeling. And discuss their work with them if you wish to, because there's always, like a Q&A and social afterward that you can approach whoever you want to talk to. But also you are able to meet up with like-minded people who really love books, people who really love to read, and discuss things that actually you find fun, or you agree with or disagree with. There's a sense of camaraderie there. That saying, I also know that it is extremely difficult to have an event like that, to mount up an event like that, because you have to have a very robust group of volunteers to work with you. Gary and Hugues has been, I just like hat off to them, because I know that I knew that they work very, very hard for each of those events. And from an event like that, we raised 3,000, 4,000, maybe 5,000. So it's not a huge amount of money. However, the event actually put us on the map. The people who joined us usually, like leave their phone number, emails, or whatever, and we can reach them. And we can reach them later on and drum up donations, perhaps, or tell them about the latest news or whatever. So there is a solidarity there that is actually easy, and then a camaraderie there that is easy and it's fun. But to able to do that, it's so much work. It's just unbelievable. And Gary is very well connected in Ottawa, so he was able to also have donations, like for foods and for wine, because I don't think actually they charge even food and wine. Uh, Maybe like a nominal $5 in order to join the Wild About Sappho event.
So, were there any readings or moments from Wild About Sappho that stand out in your memory?
I think it's actually really hard to choose one specific moment, because, like I participate at least 5 or 6 events, Wild About Sappho event. I remember uh, some of the writers that join us. There's a lot actually that I really like. I mentioned John Barton for the poetry. I'm thinking about Ivan Coyote for some of her stories. For fictions, we have so many people. We have Emma Donahue, we have Jamie O'Neill's, we have Wason Joy. It was really a good crowd. And throughout the year, there's really a lot of nice writers that went through the event.
But you must have also met a bunch of other people who were even just working with Lambda. And I'm kind of curious, do you have any memories about some of the people that you met through Lambda when you think back about like all over the course of 20 years? Are there certain friendships or certain connections that stuck out to you?
The person that actually have the most impact on me, I must admit, is Gary Seeley. He's one of the founder of the Lambda Foundation, but he also incredibly well read. He read so much and he read so fast, has such energy. I'm just thinking of all the things that he accomplished and I'm just amazed because Lambda Foundation is not his only baby. He has others. And to be able to have that kind of energy, I'm just in awe. I must say that, working with a nonprofit organizations, I also think that a lot, if not all of the board member of Lambda Foundations, I find really impressive because we are volunteer-led board. People sacrifice their weekends because usually our meeting is around the weekend, sacrifice their weekends and to work to advance ideals that they don't necessarily, it's not a concrete things, you know what I mean? Like scholarship and endowments and all of that, I think it is kind of nebulous and to give times and energy and the different like presidents of Lambda Foundation that went through before Cameron's. I think it's just like I'm just amazed that of what
So you've been involved for 20 years. Lambda is turning 40 this year. For that time, you've been around for half of that time. How has, in your time, Lambda worked to remain relevant? Looking ahead to the future now, you mentioned Cameron, who's like the director, taking over from Barb Freeman a number of years ago. What are the issues that Lambda sees in front of them now in order to kind of continue to remain relevant in the future?
So I think that existential kind of questions we have as a board, we have asked. And with the wage grant, we actually have professional people come and help us untangle a little bit of that. We have a strategic plan. It is the first time actually that I went through such an exercise and it was just amazing. It's make it a lot clearer some of the tendency that I observe, but don't necessarily know exactly to put my finger on. But with that, we have a strategic plans and there is some change to the way that the board approach the endowments and scholarships. And the big questions for us also is who are we helping? Who are we serving? So, and how best to go about that.
Looking over, your time also, are there certain things that you're very proud of, like in terms of your accomplishments over the time that you've been involved?
I think I think in general, I can say that whatever we managed to do as a board, I think is awesome that as a team, we're able to progress so far. Half of me say the best reward actually is one day for the board, the future board, to say, hey, we accomplish everything that we need to. The society is where we want to be. We should move it to some other topics, and Lambda is no longer relevant. So I think that's the best scenario. But like I said, I also see the pendulum swings. So that might be a bit utopian. We would have to see. But I stay optimistic because we have so many good people working with us and helping us. And we try to do our best to help others.
Well, Tuan, I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with us today and for sharing your memories with us. We hope that these stories inspire and deepen your understanding of Lambda Scholarship Foundation's legacy and enduring impact. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't miss the other interviews that we posted as part of Lambda Scholarship Foundation Canada's 40th anniversary project. There are plenty more inspiring voices and stories to discover. So thank you, Tuan.
Thank you very much, Chris. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.